In today's journey, we're going to take a look at the Inkbird WiFi ITC 308 temperature controller. Not only extremely economical at about $50, but also includes heating and cooling. We have been using this heating only model for our brew setup for a while, so we know Inkbird does make good components even if they're at a lower price, and are great for the home brewer, although we wouldn't recommend them for anything other than a backup controller for a pro brewer. It's like gaming versus server components for computers. They're marketed towards different people because they have different needs. And of course, the first thing Phil does is throw away the warranty card. And even if you think you're too cool to read the manual, we still recommend familiarizing yourself with what these letters are going to mean for later, because it will help you operate this in the future. Although most of what we're going to go over today is set it once and never think about it again. Although the scary part is you should probably read the manual of any electrical device you're going to plug into the temperature controller, as plugging in a device that demands too much power to this could lead to an electrical fire or damage to the device itself. Our recommendation, avoid anything but the smallest of space heaters, and reevaluate any setup that requires a heater or cooler to be operating for longer than an hour at a time. At that point, you should be reevaluating your insulation situation. And in our situation, we've been using this blue guy here to do our fermentation chamber that's inside of a chest freezer, no problem, along with running the lab grade hot plate that is our brew system. So it's one of those, as long as you're mindful, it's never actually a problem situations. We've only actually ever had one Inkbird fail, and that was user error that can happen with any brand temperature controller. So like any electrical device, you use at your own risk. And remember, there's a reason why this two-phase temperature controller costs half as much as a single-phase professional one. Two-phase refers to the fact that it controls both heating and cooling using one temperature probe. And that's a great place to start talking about how to set this up. First, make sure that the heating and cooling appliances have power cables that will reach the appropriate power socket. This is important because if you plug your heater into the cooler socket, you will heat instead of cooling, thus doing the exact opposite of what the temperature controller intends to do. That's why we do recommend doing a test run before actually running the system for real. But you should always test your equipment before deploying it in the field. Try a lamp or something. We're going to take a second to plug this all in so we can take a look at the faceplate. This top display line will show you the current temperature or the menu code within the menus. The bottom line will have the current temperature or setting values within the menus. It doesn't say so in the manual, but we assume it means present value or setting value. We will use a bit of time distortion while we fiddle with the temperature, but when we go into heating mode, you will see this red light turn on here. That means that there is power flowing to the heating outlet on the power strip. You can test this by plugging in a lamp into that outlet. When this green light is on, that means that the cooling outlet should be getting power instead. And again, we recommend testing with something like a lamp first, because things like refrigerators can be damaged if powered on and off too repetitively. That is why when properly configured, this device actually has protection for such problems. For example, notice how the green light is flashing now instead of being on solid. That means it's refusing to give power because not enough time has passed since the device has last turned off. Last two parts of the interface is that whenever you see this APP appear, it means that the device is communicating with the internet, either by logging data or informing your phone of some sort of alert, such as that one you can hear in the background right now. Along with there being alerts pushed to my phone. And the alarm will continue to sound until you press set or the temperature comes down by itself. And finally, it never hurts to double check that your Wi-Fi LED is solid. That means it's connected to the internet and registered with your app. When setting up with the app, this up button doubles as the Wi-Fi button, but we're going to hit set here and show you how to set it up without an internet connection. Hold set for about 3 seconds until you see TS and the numbers flashing. TS stands for temperature setting, and that's your target temperature that you can change with these up and down arrows. Press set again to go to HD, which stands for a heating difference value. This is the number of degrees below the target temperature that you want the chamber to get before turning on the heater, with a maximum of 30 degrees. And then up next is CD, or cooling difference, which is the same thing except for how much hotter than the target value it will get before turning on the cooling device. Press set yet again and you get alarm high. This should be how hot things are allowed to get before you want to be alerted that something might be wrong. Up next is AL, and that's the same thing for low. Up next is PT, and that stands for compressor delay time. Clearly, this is how many minutes in between turning on the cooling device has to pass before it will turn back on again. Check the user manual of whatever you're using to cool just to make sure, or set it to at least 5 or longer. CA stands for temperature calibration. This is to offset the reading in case something's wrong with your probe. Only use this if you know you have a problem. And I'm sure someone will make fun of us for using Fahrenheit, but CF is where you can switch in between the two, and inexplicably is the only one that beeps when you change it. Once you get back to TS, then the menus just cycle back around again. Hold down set again to push these settings to the app. You'll know it's done when app clears. And speaking of the app, let's take a look at how to set that up. We're going to be using iOS because that's what we have. But in either case, download the Pro app as it has a bit more options. And despite having Pro in the title, it should be free. Unfortunately, you will have to register with some sort of an account. Use a burner email address if you don't feel comfortable using your main one. We see Phil's using a Hotmail account from forever ago. Just follow the on-screen prompts and then come back when you're ready. But once you are ready, just plug in all your login information, log in, and then you'll be greeted with an empty device page. Hit that plus button in the upper right corner, and then we'll start the process. Remember that Wi-Fi button we mentioned earlier? And hold it down until the small LED in the upper left corner on the top display is lit up. Once you hit confirm there, it'll sync up with whatever Wi-Fi you're currently hooked into. Please forgive us for not sharing our personal information. And then hit confirm, and it'll start looking for any devices that you have set looking for a Wi-Fi connection. Phil may have forgotten to make sure it was actually doing that the first time, so we're going to speed through this first screw-up batch. But if it happens to you, don't worry. When you're prompted, hit the Got It button, and it'll do a research again and give you an opportunity to re-enter your password. Now that Phil's double-checked that that light is actually flashing, we're going to speed right through this part while it connects to it. But it took about 1.5 minutes. We only have one of their Wi-Fi products, but we think you can actually add multiple products at the same time on this page. And to make your life easier down the road, you can give everything a nickname right here by clicking that little pencil icon and typing it into this block right here. We, however, only have the one, so we're just going to leave it as is. Give it a moment to reconfigure everything, and now you can see your device on the home page. Click on it and you can see what it's doing, what its temperature is, and set it up just like you were standing right in front of it. Almost everything is right here, slightly different names, but pretty much everything lines up. One of the best parts about setting it up this way is that if you need to scroll through the numbers real fast, it's a lot quicker than doing it on the actual control panel itself. Which is great for us because we have to switch between boiling things and running a fermentation chamber with the same device sometimes. As we said before, this makes a great backup device, and that's what we use it for. Where this device really stands out is that it does data logging at about $50. Plus heating and cooling, it's a great steal. It's almost too good to be true. And the fact that you can use the button in the upper right corner to directly export as a CSV file, either text message directly to computer, email, it's too easy, and there are some downsides, and now we're going to get into the review part. The fact that this device costs a fraction of something that can only do one of the features that this has makes me a little suspicious. Add to the fact that it's an Internet of Things device, which are notorious for bad security, I hesitate to use this in any commercial environment. It is a great product that does do a good job at what it says it's going to do, but it does raise some concerns when I see a mysterious device on my network called Mustang. I assume it's a temperature controller, but I can never really be sure. I mean, why wouldn't they change the name to something that applied to the device itself? They are probably just using off-the-shelf components and aren't changing the default settings on some of the things. Any of these two-phase Inkbird controllers are great for an intro brewer, but these don't have as much power as, say, an Arduino or a Raspberry Pi would. And oddly, some of those deployments could actually come in cheaper with more features and greater accuracy. Although those methods do not save you any time. So you definitely save money there. And everyone knows time is money. And we probably will get more of these devices in the future. So it's a give and take relationship. Like, yeah, the Raspberry Pis are great, but this is what they look like coming out of the box. Not ready to go right away. And one last thing to note is that the temperature probes do work really good and they look solid, but do not submerge them underwater. They're not actually long-term water safe. They're just resistant to water. But all in all, 4 out of 5 stars, great, would buy again, but not perfect. But for the price, it's amazing. Now don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and check out some of our other videos. And if you are interested in this product, check out our affiliate links down below in the description.